John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word in Greek is called Logos, and I know many of you already know this. Now, there are many attempts by scholars and students of the Bible, to explain the word Logos, and I'm grateful for their work. Now, let's be honest. Many times we tend to overthink ideas, and we refuse to get out of the box. We zoom in to check out the pixels of an image, but we don't zoom out to look at the image itself. Now, there are tons of materials out there that discuss the concept or the definition of the word logos, and I'm not going to go over those materials because, frankly, I don't think that that was John's intention. If you look at John's presentation of the logos, it doesn't appear that he was trying to explain the concept to the readers. He wasn't trying to teach them a new vocabulary. He wasn't trying to teach them the dictionary definition of the term. John simply lays it down to the readers. He simply assumes that they understand the concept. He counted on them to understand the meaning and the concept of the word logos. He was not throwing something that was unfamiliar to them. Now, I don't think John was trying to be, trying to sound smart or scholarly. He was not trying to be cute. What he was doing was making a connection between the Logos and Jesus Christ. Now, the question is, where was his starting point? John's starting point, I believe, was the same as every other New Testament author's starting point, which is the Old Testament, because that is where they learned their theology. That is where they learned the concepts of God and their Messiah. Now, sometimes the easiest way to understand an idea turns out to be the simplest way. It doesn't need to be complicated. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about the Old Testament roots of the word logos. Okay. Now, according to Lexham Bible Dictionary, the standard rendering of logos in English is word. This holds true in English regardless of whether logos is used in a mundane or technical sense. Over the centuries and in a variety of languages, other suggestions have been made, such as the recent idea of rendering logos as message in English, but none have stuck with any permanency. Because of its semantic range, logos has been linked to or contrasted with a wide variety of other words for word, such as davar, memera, rima, sophia. Now, I'm not sure if I'm butchering those words, but I think what this is trying to say is that they can be used synonymously. They could be interchangeably used. Now, just to make sure that I got it right, I check out the occurrences of the word logos in the Greek translation. And I'm going to share some of the examples here just to explain what I'm trying to say here. Now, some of these examples is in one of these examples in actually in Ezekiel chapter 12. As you've noticed here, the word of the Lord came to me saying, Son of man, you will dwell in the middle of the injustices of those who have eyes to see and do not see, ears to hear, but do not hear. Okay, now chapter 7 of Zechariah, you're going to notice the same thing. And it happened in the 4th year of King Darius. The word of the Lord came to Zechariah on the 4th day of the 9th month, which is Kislev. Same goes with Jonah chapter 3. And the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, Rise up, go to Nineveh, the great city, and announce in it according to the previous message. Same goes with Haggai. Same goes with Jeremiah. Okay? Notice that there is anthropomorphism. The word of the Lord came. It speaks to the prophet. This is not just a message arriving or being delivered to the prophets. This is the word. or God Himself coming, speaking to the prophets. Now, if you happen to do a search using the phrase, the word of the Lord in English, you will notice the same thing happening in many places where the phrase occurs. Now, in Genesis chapter 15, it says here, after these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Fear not, Abram, I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. But Abram said, O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. Notice, the word of the Lord appeared in a vision to Abraham, and they were having a conversation. Now, if this was only a message that was delivered to Abram, how can it reply? How can it have a conversation? Now, clearly, the author's intent here was to tell us that the word of the Lord, this vision, is tangible, is something that can be seen, something that speaks, something that is having this conversation with Abraham. Okay, now notice another thing as well. The Greek word used here is rima, but the Hebrew word used is davar. Elsewhere, the word davar is also used as an equivalent to the logos. In 1 Samuel chapter 5, it says here, now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli, and the word of the Lord, or the dabar of the Lord, was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. The word dabar is once again used here. Again, the same Hebrew word can be translated rima or logos in Greek. Notice what it says. There was no frequent vision. This implies that the word of the Lord can be seen. If you continue reading the chapter, you're going to find out that the word of the Lord was again having a conversation with Samuel. It is not only a message that came to Samuel, but it was the Lord Himself. And we could go on and on with more examples, but my point is simple. The word of the Lord is an epithet of the Lord God in the Old Testament. It is one of those titles used in the Old Testament, to talk about God. Now, John was connecting this epithet, and he's connecting this to Jesus. Okay, John was connecting the Old Testament word of the Lord, the vision of Yahweh, to Christ, the word of the Lord that visited and talked to the prophets and other individuals was none other than Jesus Christ. He was in the beginning. He was with God. He is God. Okay, and He has tabernacled with mankind. So I hope you find this video helpful. Like, share, subscribe, and God bless.